All right, it looks like about everybody is here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to get started, since we're on Zoom and doing that, so I'm gonna go ahead and introduce the class and everything. So if you have an issue with Zoom, can't hear me, let me know. You can also text in the chat. I will periodically check that if you want to just put a question there or something. So feel free to stop me if you have a question or raise it in the chat, and I'll come back to it later. So. All right, so we'll start out. So hopefully everybody's here for MSE 407. Some of you I recognize in the Zoom here. Others I haven't had you before. So I will be an instructor for MSE 407. My name is Tom Koschel. I'll be your instructor throughout the whole thing. We have Sarah O'Brien is going to be our TA for the course. You might be able to see her up there. And then Nancy Miller, who I think all of you have met in MSE 202, will be the lab manager throughout the course. Normally you would see her a lot more, but since we won't be in the lab quite as much, you might not get to see her that much. So if she pops in, I'll introduce her as well. So MSE 407 is the first in the two sequences of the lab courses, although you can take them out of order. So I know I've seen a couple of you in MSE 408. That's not an issue. But today what I wanted to do is go over kind of the introductory material. So we'll kind of hit the syllabus, also kind of explain some of the differences for this course because it is a majority online. So we'll try to cover all of those details, answer any questions that you have. And then what we're going to do after that is we're actually going to start right in on the first experiment. Basically, I'm going to have you start to brainstorm ideas and come up with the actual experiment that we're going to run. So that will probably take some time today, and then we'll wrap that up on Wednesday. So we probably won't be able to get all of it done, and it's good to give you a little time to think. So basically, I'll get you started on that, and then we'll come back on Wednesday and hopefully wrap up that kind of discussion and design of that experiment. So that's what we're going to do today, and I'll kind of walk you through the class as is. I'm going to show the Canvas homepage so I can show you where things are, but also feel free to use your own browser and look it up just so you can make sure you know where everything is. So that's where we're going to kind of go first. Is I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. All right, so can everybody see the Canvas page? Okay. So there may be differences between my screen and your screen. Keep in mind that this is kind of like the teacher view or whatever. So if there's some differences, I apologize, but I promise that everything that I have up is up for you as well. So this is the homepage. I just kind of wanted to kind of walk you through the stuff that I've added so far and where you'll be able to find information. Obviously, announcements, it looks like everybody got the first announcement about the time and place for the first one. So that is here. If you join the class late, sometimes the emails don't go out to you, but I like the settings where the announcement will go to your email. I think most of you probably have that, but if you don't, I would recommend switching it just so you get any announcements that I send right off the bat there. So announcements, assignments, this is where you'll find everything in the course. I've tried to put everything ahead in the Canvas so that you know at least roughly when each of these assignments are due. Inputting these, sometimes I mess up on a date or something. So if you see discrepancies between this and the syllabus, please let me know. Also, if you see any big conflicts, you can always let me know. But I tried to put these in as best as I could. So those are the list of all the assignments. It'll also give you the grade breakdown and so forth. So you can kind of look through those. Discussion. Last semester, I tried the discussion. There wasn't a whole lot of people that were using it, but it can be a good resource if you have general questions and you want to sort of pose it to me or somebody else in the class. So that can be a good idea if you want to do that. You can also email me, but if you want to do discussions, I'm up for that. I will get an email telling me that a discussion has been posted. So if you want to try that in terms of getting your questions answered, I will check that periodically. You're probably familiar with the grades and everything. Let me go to the people though. So I've put a lab group section here. And so this is where you'll actually be able to kind of self-select the groups that you want to work with throughout the semester. So we'll talk about this more in a little bit, but basically you are not required to work in a group, but it is highly, highly, highly recommended. I just don't require it because I know that depending on where you're at and all that, it might be difficult to work with a group. But throughout the semester, I highly, 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 highly recommend getting in a group and working with it. At the end of the semester, when we do presentations, you will be required to work with that with a group. But throughout the semester, it's just, again, highly, highly, I don't know how many times I've said that, but a lot of highlies recommended to work in a group. So you can kind of self-select there. I'm not going to monitor that too much. So work with people that you're comfortable with, work with people that are going to help you get the work done. So that's where you can find that. Also, I believe files should be open to you, but if it isn't, let me know. But if you just want to find a file I upload, they should be in here. And then syllabus is going to be the big one. So I'll go there first. So I've put the PDF of the syllabus and I've made it so that it just automatically pops up. So you don't have to download it each time. Canvas does its own thing too as well. So it'll give you a summary of all the assignments down below. And it also has some stuff on the side here that is covered up for me, but basically the assignment breakdowns and so forth. And if it ever loads, I will show you the syllabus. Try that again. There it goes. Okay, sometimes it's a little slow. So so this is the syllabus that I've created for the semester. Obviously, my name and email address you can find there. I do mention that the email is probably the best way to find me. So I didn't put it on this syllabus, but I do for the others. But basically, I'm trying to get back to emails quicker than I have in the past. So basically, if you give me an email, I'll try to get back to you during the weekdays and around 24 hours. And then on the weekends, it's closer to probably 48. If it's a really quick question, I can tend to get back to you quicker. If you ask me sort of more intense questions, then that kind of that might speed up that might take the process a little longer. So keep that in mind just when you send an email, but I'll try to get back as quick as I can with that. So that's the best way to find me. I sort of X'd out the office there because I will not be having in-person office hours. So that is my office for future references. But for this semester, I might be in there because I have to go in for lab stuff, but I will not be hosting office hours. But in the future, if you ever need me, same thing with the phone. I'm not going to be answering phone calls in my office. So as it says, and as I hope you're all aware, this is going to be online based on this first meeting. We're going to be online. I will schedule and leave up time slots for some optional in-lab activities throughout the semester related to each of our lab experiments. So that is optional. I know some of you may not even be in the city, so that's optional, but it can be useful if you want to sort of get a hands-on feel for each of these lab experiments. But again, they're optional. Even if you don't want to actually run the experiment, sometimes if you just want to like pop into the lab, see where things are at and maybe ask some questions, we'll do that. I'll give you more information on these optional in-lab things, but really the main difference is going to be that they're going to be small. So I'm going to limit it to 2 people at a time in the lab. So that just keeps the numbers down, keeps us all safe for that. So the way that we're going to sort of deliver the course this semester is going to be mostly asynchronous, so basically pre-recorded. But I do recommend that you keep the scheduled times that we have for this class. So that's Monday, Wednesday from 8 to 11, and Friday from 9 to 9:50. I recommend that you keep those open because I will periodically in advance schedule us a live lecture if I think we need to come together and chat on Fridays. And also, I know everybody is free from those time slots. So if you need to meet as a group, that's the best time to meet. And also, if you want to, as a group, check with me on lab progress and things like that, that's going to be the best way to do that. So, yeah, so I advise to keep those open, but a majority of the semester will be asynchronous. So, so yeah, if something comes up for you on those time slots, that should be fine. But generally, to work with groups and things like that, I would recommend keeping those time slots open. So yeah, so that's kind of the time and place. For office hours and things like that, I will go through Zoom as you have here. You might not notice it throughout the semester, but basically the link's always the same. So if I forget to send out a link, or if you just can't find it and you want to get in real quick, the link's always the same. So that's just my personal meeting room, and then the password's always there, so you can see it. So that should be always the same. The title might be different in the email, but it should be the same as well. Also, Nancy has her email address down here as well, and she has a Zoom room as well for answering questions. So if you have questions there, this would probably apply to the senior design folks as well. If you have a question related to actually using the lab and so forth, recommend email, or if you want to set up a Zoom meeting real quick, you can do that as a first contact point. Okay, so so I won't kind of go through the course description here, but more or less, we're going to kind of cover a wide variety of topics. And so I'll go through the actual lab experiments with you here in a second. But this also does provide you with credit for the GCCR, the graduation, I always forget the real name, graduation composition and communication requirement. So basically the lab report that we start with will, and a revision of that meets this requirement. So that means you just don't have to take an extra writing course to fulfill that. So just for future reference, if you're looking at your schedule there, it does require that you get a C or better. And if you have more questions about any of that, you can let me know. Okay, so, and I'll also let you look through the outcomes. I want to hit the major points here before that. So course structure. So this is going to be divided into 3 lab experiments. We're going to start off basically today with the first one, which is on ion exchange of glass. And we'll go over very briefly, what that means and what it implies today. And then after that, we'll do a processing of 4140 steel. That will be the second lab. And then we'll end it with high temperature superconductors. So obviously we have 3 labs. If you want more details, I've included a schedule at the bottom, so you can kind of week by week see roughly what we'll be doing in those weeks. So this first week, you can kind of see there, we're doing an intro, and we're going to do a design of experiment for this glass lab. And then next week is when the actual lab kind of starts in full. So that'll give you a little bit more breakdown of what we're doing each week. And assignments due and so forth. So feel free to use that as well as the schedule through Canvas. All right, so let's go back up. All right, so those are the 3 lab assignments. So typically what would happen is, so I just want to kind of explain to you what would happen in a typical semester, and then kind of show you how we're going to vary it this semester with sort of our COVID restrictions. So normally we would all meet up in the MSE Commons on the first floor. We would get together as a group. I would do the same spiel about the syllabus, and then we would design the experiment as a class. Obviously, we're not meeting together in person, but we're meeting here through Zoom. So that's the main difference there. And then the same thing, instead of in person, we're going to design this experiment over Zoom through with the class. So that's what we'll do later. Hopefully we don't have a lot of issues with Zoom there. Then typically what would happen is on Mondays and Wednesdays, we would either be in person collecting data or in person doing data analysis with your groups. So this semester, what will happen is I will, at the beginning of each week, I will upload any instructional videos that you need. So for the glass lab, if we're going to use furnaces and if we're going to use nitrate salts, I will post videos on the procedures to use those things and how we would actually carry out and how it actually is carried out the experiment. So you'll watch those videos. And then after that, we will actually run the experiment that we're designing this week. So we'll carry out the experiment, and then we will upload data that's necessary for that. So this could be dimensions. So since we're dealing with glass rods, this could be the diameter, length, things like that. So we'll upload those measurements and any sort of data that we get. If we run mechanical testing, we'll give you those data files. Anything like that, we'll upload. So basically, you'll have instructional videos from us with a very detailed procedure of how we operated. And then you'll have data delivered to you electronically. And so the majority of your assignment for the lab will be getting this sort of raw data and analyzing it and working through it as a group or individually to get the various assignments for the lab. So lab reports, lab assignments, and presentations at the end of the semester. So that's kind of how the structure will be. And just to get you aware of how we're going to sort of organize this, let me go to announcements, and then share with you the email I sent right before we started. So this is going to be the share drive that I've set up for the class. If you follow the link, you should be added to the share drive that I've created. And so this is where I'll upload data. And also this document, hopefully everybody can see here, that basically says MSE 407, spring 21, and then lab progress. So this is like the one spreadsheet that I'm going to use to sort of track progress and put all the links and so forth. So if you want to kind of look at what I have so far, and this will kind of change as we go through, but I've have it broken down into labs. So lab 1, and then lab 2, and then lab 3 down here. So basically, today's video that I have of us chatting about this, and also the experimental design, I will take that and post it, and you'll have a link here. And the invitations are over here if you ever need them again. And then if I make lecture videos for the week, I will post the links here. And then as we start to get actual experiments, I will either provide photographs or others, and I'll put the links in here. So this is going to be like one hopefully convenient place for you to see all of the videos, all of the data that we have done at that point, at that moment. So basically I keep this up to date as soon as I can. So I will put data. I'll also put some links to assignments and so forth, just so that there's one kind of convenient place for all that. So that's kind of how I'm going to break this down. So obviously, I've allowed you access to the entire folder. I would obviously it would be much appreciated if you didn't delete things from this. It's much easier just to give you edit access to everything. So obviously, please do not mess with anything on this if you can help it. But if anything does happen, just let me know and I can take care of it. So that's going to be the one place that you can find all of the information about the progress of what's done and what isn't done so far. All right, so let's go back to the syllabus, and hopefully it loads this time. Okay, so so that's kind of the sequence of this lab and how we'll operate this semester. But I do want to kind of make a couple caveats. Every time I've done a survey about what people prefer in terms of, since we're doing this online, I asked, do people prefer synchronous? Do people prefer asynchronous? I always get a mix, and it's really hard to accommodate everybody on that, obviously. So I know a lot of my stuff this semester for the lab is going to be asynchronous. I know some people don't like that as much. I also know that we're in the situation where we're online, and this isn't ideal for me either. I don't like it. I would prefer to just be in the lab. But out of safety, I want to make sure that we all make it through. So that's kind of where I'm at here. So so I understand, if you get frustrated throughout the semester, because obviously it's a lab and this is one of the hardest types of classes to do online. It's tough for us too. So keep that in mind. But the reason I mention that is because this is only the second and a half time I've done this over online for this lab course. So if anything's not working for you, if you have any questions, if you think there's something that we can do differently, I'm open to suggestions. I want to make this as easy for everybody as possible. So if there's something I can do, we will do it. But again, some of these things are just kind of unavoidable. But if you do have questions, so forth, please let me know. I will change what I can. If there's a better way to organize things, I'll do that. If we want to move to a different system other than Google Drive, I'll do that. Any of these kind of things that we can make things easier for you, we will do. With that said, since this is mostly asynchronous, I'm uploading videos and data, and then you're doing the work. I have office hours. Make sure that if you have questions, whether they're minor or major, please ask them. I have 2 office hours listed. If they do not work, let me know, and I have other openings. I also have the lab time. So I won't be just on Zoom the entire 2 hours Monday, Wednesday, but I will be there if you want to set something up. One thing that I picked up from last semester is that some groups met with me pretty regularly during the semester to kind of go over the data that I was putting up online, going over questions that they had. So those are the groups that tended to do better. I highly recommend that as well. I'm not going to require that you kind of check in with me every week or every other week or whatever it is, but I highly recommend that if you have a question, I would actually recommend that you kind of get with your group and get together with them and then set up a time and we can all meet. That way, kind of everybody's questions are answered at once. I can make sure that everybody's on the same page. So I highly recommend that kind of question asking or group check-ins, if you will. So that's kind of why I want you to keep those time slots open for Monday and Wednesdays, because those are kind of the best times to do stuff like that. So if it becomes super popular, I might just set up something permanently. But for now, just send me an email or announcement or something through Canvas, and we'll get it figured out. So again, I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. I've been talking a lot, so are there any questions so far? All right, well, so let me finish up here and talking about the syllabus and how this class is gonna go. And then we can take a bit of a break before we sort of start to design this, this experiment. Okay, so that's kind of the core structure. It will become a lot more obvious next week how the typical week would flow. This is obviously a little bit different than the typical week. But I'll make sure, especially this first week, to send you lots of emails and reminders just to kind of let you know the progress and how it's going to work out. Okay, so technology here. The main thing I wanted to kind of point out here is obviously we're going to use Canvas. That's pretty obvious. And then other things are things that you can get free either through the university or just online. So anything like Word or Excel, if you want to use Google for any of that, it's fine. I don't put any requirements there. We will use a software called ImageJ. This is a free software that you can find online. We'll talk about it when it comes up. But I try to use all free softwares, so there shouldn't be anything that you have to buy for this class. Down here, this kind of goes over the assignments and activities that we'll have. Like I mentioned, we're going to have kind of lab instructional videos. I will post those to YouTube. If you want to get the general playlist, you can find the link here. But again, when I post something, I'll put it in the lab progress so that you can kind of know that it's there. And again, for each week, I'll typically send out announcements when things are up. But if you want just a general link to things, you can find it there. And also, if we have any sort of discussion or live class like this on Zoom, it gets recorded and I'll post it. I will not just post it to the internet though, because obviously your guys' faces are on this too. So what I'll typically do is make it private. So if you're worried about me putting your faces on the internet, that's not going to happen. I'll just I'll put it in a more private location, but I still want you to be able to go back, or if you are not able to make it, obviously that's something that we need to work with. So so that's how we'll do those lab videos and lectures. Just to kind of keep you on track and going through these videos and so forth, I will have some worksheets and lab assignments throughout the semester with the goal kind of to ask questions related to what you're seeing in the videos so that you kind of comprehend the lab procedure and what we're doing. And so you'll have a few of those. They're listed in the schedule that you can see, and they're already posted in terms of the dates that they're due. I don't have anything other than the first lab assignment actually uploaded, but you can kind of see when those are due. But a lot of those will be kind of tailored to work with the lab videos. So I'll ask you questions about the procedure. For example, what is the strain rate that we're using, or what is the diameter of the glass, or things like that, just to kind of make sure that you're keeping up. Because the worst thing that you can do is wait until the days before something's due, because there's going to be lots of videos and lots of data. So make sure you're kind of keeping up with things and working with your groups on that, and that will be the best way. So all of those I will have in Canvas, and I'll try to put some links up in the lab progress document as well, so everything is in one place. Yeah, so we will also have two lab reports. You'll have one what I call a full lab report, which is just a slightly longer version on this first glass lab. And then you'll have a shorter form lab report on the second one, which is on steel. And then after that, the third lab, obviously, we're still having a third lab, but instead of a written document like that, we will cover it with a presentation. So that will be kind of the end of the semester presentation. So we'll talk more about this towards the end of the semester, but same thing. This will obviously be over Zoom or whatever software you want to use, but I'll make it either where you can do it synchronously if you would prefer that, or if you want to upload asynchronously. I'm giving you options for that, but we will assign groups for this. So this will be a group assignment. And it will be covering the high temperature superconductors lab. And it will be in, I don't know if we're calling it dead week this year, but the last week of the semester is when that will be. So we'll cover more of those details at a later date. Lab reports, I also have documents up. So if you go to files and assignments and lab reports, you can find a lot of information here. The guidelines document here kind of goes over what should be in it. So here for the full lab report, it tells you page limits and what sections should be in there. It tells you what the title page should look like. It gives you a lot more breakdown of what each section should have. And so you can look through that. There's some formatting. It covers the short form lab report, and then also gives you some formatting for both documents. So obviously take a look at that. This is the same as it is for MSE 408, and a lot of it is similar to what you did in 202. There is some differences, but a lot of it's the same as that. So going back, so there's a lot of information there. Also with citations, there's some documents that you can look up. Teamwork, like I said, I highly recommend it for analysis throughout the semester, but it's not required. Again, I highly recommend it, but it is going to be required for the end of semester presentations. So how you operate as a team for those, there will be a kind of a teamwork and a participation grade. I will survey you at the end of the semester to kind of see where teammates are at. Were teammates helpful? Were they kind of hindering the process? Were they hard to get in touch with? All that sort of stuff. So make sure that you are, when you're working with a team, make sure that you are contributing. Make sure if you're all in a Zoom call, if you are on mute and have your video off and you're not like discussing with other people, then that's not super helpful. So make sure all of those, make sure that you're actually working with your team. All right. Oh, okay. I've got a question here. Yes, I do have a, in terms of a kind of a sample report, there should be a sample report in there. If there isn't, let me know, but it's basically the short lab report. So the formatting is slightly different in the short lab report as opposed to the full lab report. but that's kind of an idea of the formatting. I tried to keep a lot of the elements the same as 202. I think the big differences are the page limits. I don't think there was page limits in 202, so that's that's the big one. But I tried to keep most of the formatting and things like that the same. It's mostly page limits. So so yeah, that should already be in that same folder we just visited a second ago. Okay, so makeup assignments as well. So make sure you get your stuff in on time. Obviously, if you have an excused absence, and so I think at this point we all know what those are, but there's a list here if you want to take a look. So obviously illness is maybe the biggest one that's going to happen on a semester like this. So let me know. It's no big deal. You're not going to get ridiculed for being sick or anything like that. So if you have illness, just let me know. Whenever you can, but quickly is always the best. If there is a death in the family, things like that, excused university-related travel, which probably won't happen too much this semester, but there are some excused university functions and things like that. So just let me know. If you know about them in advance, let me know about them in advance. And also, it's not written in here, but if the I've seen a lot more sort of anxiety and so forth about just things with COVID, everybody being online. There's a lot more sort of unwritten things that happen. Things tend to this kind of snowball faster with this. So please let me know if you're kind of falling behind or if you need a little extra time. I'll try to do what I can, but yeah, I know that this semester and last semester, are more difficult than most. So, let me know if there's something I can do. If I can, not all the time I can, but yeah, I want to help you out as much as possible. But the most important thing is just checking in with me, letting me know what's happening, and then we can work from there. So if you ever have any questions, let me know. The earlier, the better. It's really hard to deal with things at the end of the semester. So that's when we really can't do quite as much. So yeah, so you can kind of see the rest of the makeup policy there. Grading, this is probably what you're really interested in. So the breakdown is here. There's quite a few lab assignments and worksheets. The worksheets, again, are really meant to be kind of check-ins with the videos and kind of assembling the data that you have. So it's basically kind of meant to make sure that you're looking at the data, make sure that you're looking at the lab videos. So that's why the number is kind of high there. But that's worth quite a bit. So this should be kind of, if you think about it, this is more or less the attendance grade of the class. So making sure that, you're seeing the lab videos, what's going on in the actual procedures. So that's why we have so many of them. I've tried to kind of condense everything else a little bit from a typical semester so that you, again, kind of the workload isn't insane. Obviously, there is going to be a lot of work. I can't do anything about that. There's a lot of stuff in the lab. That's why there's so many of these kind of worksheets. But otherwise, then from the lab assignments, we've got the 2 lab reports that I told you about. And again, the first one, which is the full lab report, is on the first experiment, ion exchange. And then the second one is on the steel lab assignment. And then I also put in the revision. So this is part of that GCCR requirement that we do a revision. So basically, I will give you back your grade with a lot of comments from lab report 1. And then it'll be your job to kind of revise that lab report and address the concerns that I've brought up. So I'll try to be very as explicit as I can in those comments that I give you. And then this one will be due rather late in the semester, just to make sure that you have enough time and that I have enough time to grade this. So that's what we'll do. And then presentation, we'll cover the last lab experiment. And I've tried to work it out in the schedule so that there's a little bit of buffer room at the end of the semester because you are doing a presentation over the last lab experiment. So things tend to get tight time-wise. And so I've tried to give you a little buffer there with the last week of, or the second to last week shouldn't have anything other than rehearsals for the presentations. But again, this is where the timing comes in. If you're waiting till the last moment to do all the data analysis, it's going to bite you on this things like this, because the presentation is the last week of class, and then that last lab experiment goes until the week before. So you'll want to make sure that you are doing things along the way. And then participation and teamwork. So this is a lot of this will be what I see from group interactions, what I get back from teamwork surveys that I'll post later in the semester. And so a lot of this will be kind of assessed by teammates. So make sure that you're contributing and doing that, being a good team member throughout the semester. Okay, so yeah, so this little bit here about participation and teamwork just kind of mentions that, again, it's mostly asynchronous. So a lot of the sort of attendance, the traditional attendance, will be assessed through these worksheets, whether you're watching them and keeping pace. The idea is there's kind of a pacing to it. So that's what the worksheets are all about. And again, if you have questions, ask me as soon as you can. The further along we get, the harder it's to kind of go back and make sure everybody's on the same page. So make sure you're staying up with as much as possible, and I will do the same. I'll make sure that I'm staying up on the lab as well. And then, yeah, I just recommend that you all kind of meet with me in person if you have questions, and we will get that addressed. All right, and then the last thing here before a lot of the kind of the safety information is the schedule. So if you're wondering what we're going to be doing on a typical or on a given week, you can find that information here. And so that will also kind of inform, what videos you're looking out for. So for, next week, it says ion exchange. So there's going to be videos posted about that procedure, and then the week after about 4-point bend. So you can kind of keep a lookout for videos pertaining to those topics, and I will check out as much. I'll make sure that I get those when the week starts for those. I had a question about the group sizes. I believe I put a group size limitation just to kind of roughly get it into four groups. So I think the limit is what is it, 4, I believe. I think I put the limits on there. Let me just double check that though. I did not. Okay, I will put the limits there. If I believe we have 16 right now, if anybody else joins the class, I might up those limits. But the idea is I just want it roughly equal. If you have, if you would prefer it another way, I'm open to listening, but I want to make sure that nobody's kind of in a really small group if they don't want to be. So yeah, I'll just put the limit at 4 for those. Okay. Let me move this and go back to the. So yeah, so the schedule obviously has the kind of the tentative what we're going to be doing that week, and then I put assignments over here. If you're not sure what the abbreviations are, it should be more apparent in the assignments, so you can go to that. But worksheet is kind of W and then the number, and so you can see all those. and get an idea of the timeline for things there. And then a lot of the rest of the document is about lab safety. So if you're going to come in for one of these optional lab sessions, I want to make sure you read those. But if you've been in any of our labs before, you're probably familiar with most of these. So making sure that you're wearing long pants, closed-toed shoes, anything that, if you have long hair or anything dangly, the make sure that's sort of put away or tied up. Wearing gloves, wearing goggles or glasses, all of that sort of information is here as well, that you can kind of take a look at if you're doing those. There's lots of information here. A lot of it's kind of boilerplate, so you might see it in your other classes too. If you have any questions on any of that stuff, let me know. But I know you've seen a lot of this, so I don't want to go through this in great detail. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop sharing that screen. Any questions over sort of the syllabus or how the class is going to work? Anything at all?
So on your YouTube page, you have some old videos from 407. Will you be updating them or changing the titles when relevant?
Yes. So right now, if it's not linked in the progress form, don't worry about it. That is from last year. As you guys are all probably aware, we went online after spring break. So I have most of the third lab that we're going to do on there. Other than the fact that some of you are aware, but I actually got COVID while I was doing that lab. So it kind of abruptly stops. I'm going to reuse most of those videos, but I will update the names and stuff so that it's not as confusing. So for right now, kind of ignore those, but I will reuse those. I will probably have to get a bit more data for that lab, but a lot of that is actually already done. So that's the good thing. But yeah, for right now, I haven't uploaded anything for glass yet, but that will be coming this week. Anything else?
Will you link to the worksheets that are located in the Google Drive usually? Will you link to them in the assignment panel?
I can try.
Okay.
Let me write that down, because I know last year, every once in a while, somebody mentioned an issue with getting in the Google Share folder. Sometimes the privileges, I think, were different. So let me. Yeah, so I'm going to try to keep it as organized as possible, but there's just so many things that sometimes it gets. If there ever is something, please let me know. I'm going to write this down to link it, and then I will try to do that, and hopefully this works. Everybody should have just gotten the link I sent you. That should again be edit privileges, so you can add and subtract, but I highly discourage the subtracting one from that folder. So this is so that you can upload data or upload analysis that you do with your group, things like that. So, and I will upload to that folder as well. But yeah, I will try to link the worksheets, because what I'll do is, for those of you that weren't in 408 last semester, for the worksheets, there will be questions over the videos and things like that. I will basically write out those questions in a Google Doc or a Word file, and I'll upload that so that you can edit it. And so what David was asking for is a link in the assignment. So I will try to do that this semester, and hopefully that works a little bit better. Any other questions? All right, so we are kind of 50 minutes in. I'm kind of tired of talking for a bit. So why don't we go ahead and take a break? When we get back, what I want to do is start kind of looking at the specific lab experiment that we're going to do. and then it'll kind of lead into what do we want to cover, and what experiment we want to sort of design. So you guys are going to have the control over what the experiment is. So if you want to, in the next few minutes, if you want to go ahead and look, there is a lab handout in the modules page for this first lab assignment. So it should be lab 1 handout. So if you want to go ahead and look at that, that'd be great. And then we'll come back. Let's come back at 10 just to make it a nice even number. And then we'll start doing that. And so what we'll do with this is we'll kind of brainstorm some ideas, hopefully get maybe a good foundation. And then we'll probably won't have enough time. So we'll come back on Wednesday for however much time we need. Hopefully it's not that much. And we'll wrap that up. And so then you'll be able to do the first assignment, which will be due at the end of the week. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take a 8-minute break and we'll come back at 10. All right. So some of you might still be getting back, but let me go ahead and start here. So what I want to do with the second half of the class today is go over the first lab. And again, like I said, we're going to kind of design that experiment as a class. So let me go ahead and go back to Canvas. So here, hopefully everybody can see the screen here. So this is the modules page. So if you go to modules here, you can also find all these same files in files if you want to just look there. So under Lab 1 Glass, you should be able to find all of those files as well. I just try to put them as easy as I can for you to look at them. So I'm going to go to this Lab 1 handout. So if this was a typical semester, I would maybe hand this out the first day of this lab. So it goes through any sort of background reading that I want you to look at. So there I just put a whole folder of potential literature articles to look at pertaining to this experiment. The materials and equipment that you're going to either have access to directly or that will be used for the procedures. So all of that information is here. And then kind of a rough schedule for what we're going to do. So as you can kind of see here with the schedule for week 1, it's basically what we're doing right now. So that's what we're going to do. So the experimental design today, and then whatever we need to wrap up on Wednesday. So we'll do that today. And then next week is where the actual ion exchange treatments will be done according to your design of experiment today. So that we have to kind of wait on that so that we know what we're doing there. And then afterwards, we'll do 4-point bending, and then we'll do some type of compositional analysis in the week after that. I've allotted 2 weeks for 4-point bend testing because there's just a lot of bend testing that needs to happen. So from your point of view, it might not be as busy those 2 weeks, but just keep in mind there's going to be a lot of bend testing. Maybe I'll play you a video in YouTube on how long it takes us to do these things. But so that's why there's 2 weeks for that. So yeah, so I'll try to give you the schedule here, but you can also find it in that lab progress document as well. So this is what we're kind of the schedule. And then I also give you some kind of tips and what I'm looking for the lab report. So you can kind of look through that as well to see what to put in the lab report. Okay, so let's start with this first lab. So does anybody know about ion exchange of glass? Feel free to anybody?
It makes glass harder.
Yeah, so the point of it is that we're trying to make it harder or stronger, right? So the most familiar example I think most people have with ion exchange glass is the phone screen. So that very thin piece of glass on your phone, even though as a lot of you have probably broken them, is a lot better than sort of a basic glass. So it's been strengthened. Gorilla Glass is the commercial name from Corning for their version of the ion exchange glass, but a lot of companies are making versions of it. And so that's the purpose. That's what we're trying to do. So for our experiment, I don't want to limit you to only thinking about making stronger glass. So if you have an idea that is kind of unrelated to the strength, but potentially weakens the glass, I'm not going to hold that against you. So if you want to experiment with that side of it too, that's fine. But but yes, the end goal is to typically make the glass stronger. There are some other applications for ion exchange too, but that's definitely the big one. So we're going to have these glass rods. You might have saw in the materials. These are basically just sort of basic, what I call basic, which is a soda lime, or sometimes called flint glass. It is kind of the glass that's everywhere. So if you have a glass container for stuff at home, if you buy a glass, something at the gas station, it's going to be this type of glass. So it's a very basic kind of formula, very cheap. And we have glass rods of this. We have lots of them. And what we're going to try to do is, with that as our kind of starting material, we're going to see what ion exchange does to our glass. And so the basics of ion exchange, and maybe I'll try to draw this out. Let's see. Let's see how well this works. All right, so here's my glass rod. All right, and so what ion exchange does is basically it's in some type of container, and it's full of ions of one type. Let's say they are potassium. So this container is full of potassium ions. And our glass, depending on the composition, but this glass has a lot of sodium. And I apologize for the terrible writing. But this, if you're familiar with soda lime glass, or the words that are there, the soda in soda lime refers to sodium oxide. So there's this type of ion in the glass. The lime means calcium. And so basically, if you're familiar with glass, inorganic glass, majority of it's going to be silicon dioxide, but there is other things. And in this case, in this formula, the big ones are sodium and calcium. But I'm going to kind of focus on sodium for a second. So we've got a bunch of sodium in this glass, and then we have it in a container that has some other ion. In this case, I'm using potassium, because this is the most common kind of transfer that we have. So if we have an ion exchange, it's what it sounds like. We're going to take an ion from the glass, and it's going to go out into this solution, and then this ion and the solution is going to replace that ion. So this is a diffusion process. There is species moving from one place to another, right? So this is diffusion. So all of those principles you know from other classes about diffusion are going to apply here. The main difference is that typically when you first study diffusion, diffusion occurs with neutral species. And so you don't have to worry about charge. Here, charge is obviously a big effect. So if I take out sodium, which is a +1 charge, it would obviously have to balance the charge with something else. So that's a bigger constraint in this system than others. So basically you have a charge diffusion process that's occurring. And so the idea here is that the potassium is slightly bigger than the sodium, and so it basically creates compression in the exterior of the glass. So let me maybe let me start a new one somewhere. Here. All right, so let's just look at the surface of the glass. So this is where the sodium is. So that's kind of the size that I'm representing with sodium. And then let's say this is the potassium. So if they exchange, then this larger sodium goes into the spot occupied by, this potassium goes into the sodium spot, and it's much larger. And so it basically creates a compressive layer. Oops. Here we go. So when that replaces, you have this large potassium taking the spot of this sodium. And so this results in compression in the surface. And compression, as we'll kind of find out if you're in the ceramics course, or if you may already know, is beneficial for ceramics that are typically brittle. So compression kind of stops crack formation. And so this compressive layer on the surface makes the glass stronger. And so that's the kind of the flow of this experiment, is that we're going to do some type of ion exchange treatment in the first week. We're going to test it for 4-point bend, which is a measure of its mechanical strength. And then we're also going to look at the composition to see if we can track these compositional differences on the surface. And so that's the kind of the flow of this experiment. Is we're going to do some type of ion exchange treatment, test its mechanical properties, and then test its composition to see if we can put all of those things together and see, again, like we always do in MSE, kind of test the processing that we did and see what effects it has on the properties and what structure is related to that. So that's kind of the goal of this experiment, is what can we do? So for us, I'm not constricting you all that much on what type of treatments we do. We do have some limitations on the materials that we have access to, and which ones are beneficial. But basically, it's kind of open what kind of experiment you want to test. There's lots of options that we can do with this experiment. So let me go back to the handout, just so you have an idea of the experiment, or sorry, the equipment and stuff. So we have the 5mm diameter flint or soda lime glass rods. So these are what we're going to start with. The nitrates, so this is the source of ions. So this is what the material is going to be exchanged with. And so the cation that you see in each of these, silver, lithium, sodium, potassium, these are the most common ones we have access to. So I would recommend that we kind of restrict our experiment to these salts as sources of other ions. And then we have this fixture that holds everything together, and we have things for measuring, like calipers, and things for making the small glass rods. And then we're going to 4-point bend test it, and we have furnaces for the heat treatments or the ion exchange treatments. And then I haven't fully decided whether we're going to use SEM or XPS, but we're going to have some type of compositional analysis on these glass rods. So we'll take a look at that. But kind of with those, see, these are going to be your basic kind of constraints. What materials we have, what we have access to. So what I want to do now is, again, I've given you a little kind of introduction into what this experiment is. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to break you up into your groups. So if you haven't already, go to the lab groups page. It looks like most of you have done this. So I am going to break you out into discussion groups on Zoom. What I want you to do is just, introduce yourself if you haven't already met, get to know each other for a second, and then start to discuss some ideas of what you would like to see in this experiment. So brainstorm some things. What kind of ion exchange variables or topics do you think would be interesting to look at? So I'll give you a few minutes for that, and then we'll kind of get back together and discuss it as a larger class. So this is going to take me a little bit to set this up. Let me breakout rooms. Okay, so I'm going to set up these breakout rooms based on the lab groups you have in Canvas. So I have to kind of do this manually. So give me a second, and I will get those set up. you should get an invite for the breakout rooms. If you don't, let me know at the end.
Hi, Dr. Cashel.
Hey, sorry, I just sent a message to all the groups. So yeah, sorry I didn't get back to you on the meeting up before this. I obviously kind of just wanted you here just to kind of see what the lab was going to be like, and just so they could kind of see a face throughout the semester. I definitely want to have a meeting with you and Nancy. I need to get a hold of Nancy to see if she would prefer to do that over Zoom or in person. But we'll set that up this week. We're in a little bit of a lull here because for this experiment, they're designing it, and so we can't do a whole lot before they kind of tell us what they want to do. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we'll definitely get something set up for this week. So, so yeah, so how are you finding the semester so far? This is the first thing I assume that you've done.
Yeah, first thing. The rest of my classes aren't until tomorrow, so.
Okay. You have all Tuesday, Thursday classes?
No, this semester there's 2 different classes that are Nico's class is on Friday, 521, okay. And then whatever the like 782, which is on Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the things we'll kind of talk about when we meet is because the 3 of us will kind of be doing a majority of the kind of lab work, but we'll set it up so that so normally Monday and Wednesdays would be the big days that you would work, but really since it is online, we have a little bit more freedom to do that, so we can steer you away from those times that you have those classes. So, but are you comfortable being in the lab with a couple other people?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure because obviously we can kind of control the number of students in there. I mentioned the optional like in-person things for them. So typically what I did last semester was I kind of gave a sign up on Canvas and maxed it out at 2 people. So, and I think not a lot of people took me up on it. So it was mostly like 2 or I think 4, I think I had maybe 4 to 6 people that did it throughout the semester. So I think at that point I just did them. But if they're if we have a few more that are interested, I might have you work with those students. But the idea is I want a really small group. I don't want a lot of people in the lab. But other than that, it would at most be me, you, and Nancy kind of working in there. She has to be in person for the chemical engineering lab. So she already has to be in the lab. I tend to only go in for doing the lab stuff, for kind of doing those experiments. So I'll have, this week I have to do some videos for the first couple weeks, and then also we can start working on the glass. But today is actually kind of my busy day because I'm doing in-person Zoom, or sorry, I'm doing Zoom meetings with all my classes. So I've got three classes today. So I'll probably maybe shoot you an email tomorrow about kind of setting something up. I just, I've been a little bit bogged down today. So
Totally get that.
So, did you TA last semester?
Yes, I was Dr. Beck's TA for 201.
Okay, so you were in person, all that?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, it'll be, I mean, it's obviously going to be a little different because it's mostly mostly no students, but I hope that more people take us up on the in-person stuff. But last semester, I think because I had it all online, a lot of people just probably were busy and didn't want to have the extra hour. So, but yeah, I'll probably also leave it a little bit open if people want to help us with the lab, because there are a lot of things that have to be done. But it is just a lot of times hard to schedule with students, with undergrads. So a majority of it will probably kind of fall to us. So yeah, so this week is definitely kind of starting on that. And then after we kind of get going on this one, there hopefully will be a little bit more time to think about the next lab, and because most of the stuff, because it's online, we have to kind of get it done ahead of time. So so at some point when we're in a good place with the first lab here, I'll probably transition and start thinking about the steel lab, and then the next one after that. So
okay.
But yeah, it'll be a little chaotic at the beginning just because I have them design it and it takes a little bit more time. So.
Gotcha.
Did you have any questions or anything? I don't want to kind of dominate this.
Not at the moment. I think I'll
Okay.
probably have more as we go along. But
Okay. Yeah. So and then I know a lot of faculty have been getting the emails to get vaccinated actually, and I've heard a lot of grad students have been too. So just kind of keep posted on your email.
Yeah,
Every once in a while, I'll check that junk.
I got that email.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I believe Nancy had her first shot. Almost all of the professors that I hang out with, they all got their shots, but I have not yet. So I'm waiting for my email. So hopefully early on in the semester, I'll have that. So they seem to want to get everybody that has some type of student contact in there, but we'll see. So right now I'm still waiting, but it's good that you all are getting it. So yeah, so that is I mean, kind of, it's going to be kind of a weird semester. Definitely a little bit different than 202. So I'll probably take the lead on making the kind of instructional videos on kind of what they would do for a typical instrument. So how they would use that. Me and Nancy will definitely train you on equipment that you need to use. So we will be using the Instron for the 4-point bend. Did you use that in 202?
I didn't do 202. I was just doing 201. But
sorry, 201.
And that was just grading papers mostly.
Okay.
I have used Instrons in undergrad.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll definitely get you trained up on that. We have 2 machines actually that will do this work, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Like, you know, once you get set up and everything, it's really fast. So we'll definitely get you trained up on that. That will be one of the first things that we do. So we have the ion exchange treatments, which will be a lot of stuff with the furnaces, and then the 4-point bend. And so those will be things that we have to start to get ready in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll train you up on everything you need to know there. But the goal is hopefully that you know, we can have a session or two where maybe we have to meet as a group and get trained and do things like that. Talk about the progress. But then if it works better for your schedule, you know, I can kind of give you like those tasks of stuff to do, and you know, you can kind of just tell me which times you're going to do them, and so it can be a little bit more independent if that helps with your schedule. Either way, like if you want to do things together, or if you kind of have a, you know, more erratic schedule or something, then we can work around either of those.
Okay.
So, but yeah, once I chat with Nancy, I'll write that down too. I'll see what maybe a good common time is to meet. So I guess the first thing you could do is, if you want to kind of look over your schedule, and how about, yeah, maybe send me times that you just have class and definite like lab meetings, stuff like that. And then we'll try to find common times, and then we'll kind of stick to those for kind of scheduling purposes. So if you want to just send me an email at some point today,
Yeah.
I'll take a look at that, and I'll ask Nancy, and we'll kind of get a time together. So,
Okay. Sounds good.
I think somebody asked me a question. Nope, just checking.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. All right. Somebody asked me for help, so I'm going to go chat with them real quick.
Okay.
Hey guys.
Good
Have a
morning,
question?
Dr. Coachell.
Good morning.
We have a question for you about how easy it is to tell how far the ion exchange occurred into the surface.
So in the past, we have used SEM-EDS. So that's the only tool we've really tried. Or sorry, we have some preliminary data for XPS, which is why I put that on there. But most of what we've done is EDS. And we haven't had a lot of success trying to track potassium. So if you're familiar with ion exchange, the number one exchange is sodium from the glass rod gets exchanged for potassium in the salt. We haven't had a lot of luck tracking potassium, I believe, because it's such a low atomic number and the sensitivity just isn't there. But when we use something like silver, so silver from silver nitrate, that shows up really nicely. And we've been able to get a lot of nice curves to show kind of the depth of that. And so we're playing around a little bit with XPS in the early part of the semester to see if that helps with potassium. But we typically steered people towards silver because we can track silver a lot better. Typically we can see things in the 10 to 100 micron range, and that tends to be what we see on that. But I looked back, and yeah, potassium, we just don't have good data on that. It's very difficult to see that. Silver is a lot easier because of that high atomic number.
The other thing that I was going to ask you is if you had ever heard of going once, like using a sodium salt bath initially, and then doing a different salt after that in the hopes of increasing uptake.
Yes. I believe we used to have actually this as part of 403 as well, like kind of like an activity where kind of people tried to pick the highest strength. And I believe either I did this or a student group did this, where they did a pre-treatment with sodium. because I just did one, I don't know how, I didn't really compare it to a lot of controls, but I have done that. That's something that we could definitely look at. And I believe one of the papers I put in on Canvas talks about the kind of a saturation or pre-treatment with sodium. So that's definitely something that we could look at.
I think the last question was, do you have a good example duration? So if we were interested in varying the duration and seeing how that impacted the depth of the uptake, or do you have a good baseline or where we can read in a good title for us to grab?
Yeah, so definitely, I didn't share it with you yet, but I have obviously all the previous year's data. And so it's hard to give like one number because because it is diffusion based, what temperature you pick really heavily dictates that. I believe the longest we've ever done is 2 to 3 days. That was a very long trial. But most of them tend to be, most of them honestly tend to work around the lab schedule. So, 3 hours is in the kind of hour to 4 hours is pretty common. But yeah, I think we've had anything from like 30 minutes all the way up to 3 days. So we can definitely, it's really gonna depend on the temperature. So I believe maybe during the next session, I can try to pull up some previous data to kind of give you some ballparks there. And also, if you look through some of the articles I've posted on Canvas, that'll give you kind of a rough idea. But yeah, kind of what I was thinking for this first session is brainstorm some general ideas, and then we definitely need to work out the more detailed things, like what temperature, what times, all those. So, but yeah, we can definitely get you some previous data and stuff like that.
Out of curiosity, how many bend tests do you consider necessary to make a good data point for a certain duration and temperature? Is it 3 or 4 or more than that?
So if you noticed why I had 2 days of bend testing, that's because of it. So each kind of segment that you want to use, each kind of time point, temperature point, whatever it is, when we do a statistical analysis that you'll see kind of throughout the semester in this class and 403, which is Weibull analysis. The kind of minimum of that is 30. So we actually stick to that. So we want you to have at least the kind of the bare minimum in terms of data. So we'll do 30 samples. So we have these kind of specially designed holders. They're basically like fancy toothbrush holders for the glass rods. And they hold basically that 30 number. And so yeah, so that's where if you look at the schedule there, it doesn't look like there's a lot going on this lab. It's just 4-point bend testing and compositional and the ion exchange, but it just takes a long time because we have so many glass rods that we have to test. So there's going to be a lot of samples that we have to run. So 30 is the number we give for that.
That is in fact a lot.
Yeah. So normally we could try, like lots of variables, but here we have to kind of limit it based on the size of the class. So, and then how much time that we have to do it for you this time. So, but yeah, that's probably one of those areas where we'll set up some in lab, some optional. And if anybody wants to kind of come in small groups and actually run a few, we'll definitely be happy to have help on that. So. So that'll probably be one of the first things that we set up for that. So. Any other questions?
For coming into lab, are you going to set up time slots for groups to come in? Okay.
Yeah, so what I'll do is, it worked out pretty well last year. Canvas has like a scheduling feature that works out pretty well. So you'll just kind of put your name down, and then I limit it to 2 people at a time. So you know, you can obviously pick somebody from your group, or it doesn't really matter. But what we did last year is kind of gave you an overview of the lab if you wanted it. This semester we can do that, but we can also, you know, if you just want to run some of the data yourself, you know, there's lots of options there. But yeah, we'll have signups. I don't have those made yet, but it'll be hopefully pretty easy. I'll show you guys how to get those signed up for.
Okay, cool.
All right, so I'm gonna bring the groups back together and we'll chat a little bit. So I'll head out. All right, I'm bringing the groups back, so they'll be here in a second.
Okay.
I'm getting low on time. All right, so I think I have everybody back. So hopefully you've had enough time to kind of chat with your groups and get some kind of basic ideas. So if somebody from each of the groups kind of wants to kind of go ahead and tell me some ideas, or you can ask questions if you have. So what we'll try to do is just get together and have these kind of basic ideas and any questions answered. And then I'll give you some kind of instructions, and then next time we'll kind of pick up this discussion. So any of the groups want to kind of share what they talked about?
I have a question.
Sure.
So we're gonna do the 4-point bend test for sure, but can we also do like another kind of like strength test, or are we only doing the 4-point bend?
We have 4-point bend set up, so it's, you know, we kind of know what we're doing there. I would be open to some other suggestions if we want to kind of try them. Kind of brittle materials are difficult with some other tests, but I'm open to kind of looking at some others. I don't know if we'll be able to do them kind of for all samples, but we might be able to kind of pick and choose some data points to look at. So we can.
Our group just briefly talked about maybe doing like a hardness test, or maybe some kind of, we talked about tensile test, but then we were like, it would fracture too easily probably. So
yeah,
and
definitely
also,
that's why we chose the 4-point, is that
yeah.
the tensile is very difficult.
Yeah, so possibly a hardness test was really our idea.
Okay. So we have definitely, hardness testing is one of the things that I've definitely looked at for these glass samples. Hardness testing on curved samples is always an interesting thing to do. We've played around with doing the same thing on glass slides. So then you can get a much easier flat surface. The issue mostly is our hardness machine. So if you're familiar from 202, that hardness machine is kind of meant for bulk materials. And so for glass, it tends to shatter it very easily. And so for that, you kind of want a much smaller load size to do that. I can definitely show you some of the things that we've done in the past, but it's really kind of meant to get very small, like kind of fractures on the surface. And it's kind of difficult on the glass rods themselves. But yeah, we can definitely kind of discuss that and see if there's anything that interests you there. Any other questions or things like that?
I had a question.
Sure.
What kind of variables would you suggest we mess with in this experiment?
So the big ones that people tend to get most of the time is duration. So how long that something's ion exchanged. Obviously, that one's a pretty straightforward. If you're talking about diffusion, time's a big factor, right? So you can do time. Temperature is another one that people tend to hit. So that one's easy to think about with some type of diffusion experiment as well. The other is more generally kind of composition. So what is in the ion exchange, the salt. So you can pick a salt, or you can try different salts, or you can try combinations for whatever kind of effect you're going for. But those tend to be the big ones, is time, temperature, some type of examination of composition of the salt. The glass rod itself is kind of fixed, so that's kind of our starting point. And so we kind of look at the salt or temperature and time are the big ones. But if you come across anything, or if you have any other ideas, this is your experiment, so I'm happy to kind of give you my 2 cents. But I love it when you guys have new ideas, something different that we haven't done before. So
Awesome. Thank you very much.
yeah, no problem.
So group one was generally thinking about varying temperature, but maybe using one of the easier to detect salts like the silver salt. So that way we could see how far into the depth of the surface it was actually penetrating.
Yeah, so so one thing I discussed with your group, David, so maybe we can clue in the others, is that you ask about the composition and how you detect that. So in the write-up, I mentioned EDS or XPS. In the past, we've done SEM EDS, and potassium, which is the most common kind of exchanged ion, is difficult to kind of non-existent to see in EDS. It's just a very difficult element to track at the compositions that we're looking at. So we've had more success using something like silver to detect that. However, on the other hand, silver, as you might expect, is more expensive than potassium. And so with silver, we tend to have to look at percentages of silver in something else. And so typically we'll put silver in sodium or potassium nitrate as kind of and then usually tap it out at about 1%. That's kind of the max that we can do for cost savings. But yeah, that is one of the limitations. We are in the process very early on to see if we can use XPS to measure potassium. But for now, we know that silver works really well. So if you want to be able to detect it in composition, that's probably what I would go towards, is silver. So what about the other groups? Any other kind of ideas that you came across or want to share with the other groups? Ideas that sound interesting to your group?
Group 3, we briefly talked about doing like different salt, like 2 different salts, and like taking various samples from those and seeing like the difference in the 2 like effects, like maybe one that's larger than the sodium and one that's smaller than the sodium, to kind of see the different like surface effects of that.
Okay. Yeah, so we definitely tried to make it so that there are variations. So if you look at the numbers, and I recommend that you can look this up as well, but potassium, I kind of mentioned that one is bigger. You can look at the amount. Silver also is bigger. So those 2 tend to be the bigger ones. And then lithium is on the other side. So that's smaller than sodium. So that's kind of why we have those listed. So if you want to try something like that, that's a good, those are good ones to look at. Any other groups have some interesting ideas?
We kind of touched on it when I asked you the question about the variables, because we were talking about temperature and composition in our group, but I did actually have another question
Sure.
about how many rods do we get to test, and could we use different salts on each one?
Yeah, so this is definitely one of the things I wanted to share with you guys before you left, because obviously it helps to have some ideas of what numbers and so forth. So we are going to do a statistical analysis because these are brittle materials. If you break one, right, it tends to be a little erratic in terms of what force they break at. So for brittle materials, we tend to have to do a little bit more statistical analysis than we do with, say, a metal sample. Because of that, we end up doing Weibull statistics, and the minimum to get that number, that statistic, is 30. So for each different kind of condition that you want to try, we're going to need 30 different glass rods. So we'll have to, and this is why I kind of gave us a lot of time for 4-point bend testing, because each set I'll have to break 30 of these glass rods. So that definitely constrains us a bit in terms of how much we can do. But that's kind of your baseline number. Is each condition that you want to test, we're going to do 30 glass rods. And so instead of maybe testing tens of different conditions, we're more along the line of 10 at the maximum for that. What I will do, because there is a lot of kind of details like that you would obviously like to know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload some previous data from previous semesters to kind of give you an idea of the numbers and some maybe different times and temperatures, things like that. So get a baseline. But I would also recommend looking at some of those articles that I've uploaded to Canvas to kind of give you a framework for what you can do. And so next time when we kind of start to put some numbers down, I'll also hopefully guide you a little bit. If you're picking something that seems kind of on the extreme end or something like that, I'll definitely be helping you along the way, because I don't want you to do the whole experiment and find out that it's it's too far or something. So yeah, so I'll definitely upload some previous data later today so that you have that information as we start to nail down some more definitive answers for this experiment. Any other questions or kind of brainstorming ideas you guys want to share? All right, so let's kind of leave it at that. We've had a good session today. So we'll come back on Wednesday at 9, same time. And basically, it'd be a good idea if as groups or as a class, however you want to do it, take a look at some of the previous data that I upload, take a look at some of the articles, brainstorm a little bit more, come up with some ideas. And then next time, we'll try to iron out all the little details. If people have different ideas, maybe we'll try to merge this and get to one kind of experiment for the class. And then that will be the basis for the first lab, which you will have a kind of a pre-lab over. And so if you want to take a look at that as well, I've uploaded that under assignments. It should say glass pre-lab or pre-lab of glass, something like that. So if you want to take a look at that assignment, but that one will be based on what we come up with today and also on Wednesday. So I will upload that data today. If there's something that you want, you have a specific question before then, let me know and I'll try to answer that. But other than that, any last questions or comments or anything?
Do you know when you're going to? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Will you open up the sort of Google Drive so we can start typing things up a little bit early before we start at 9, or will you open it at 9 for us to?
Do you want me to make kind of like a document or something where you can auto type? Yeah, I could definitely do that. I believe also I've got this class and then 2 others today. So I might be a little late. If you want, you can check to see if you have access to open something and
Okay.
share it with the group. If you want to just kind of throw together a quick document or something. Otherwise, I'll try to get that today or tomorrow. I'll write that on my list. All right, any other questions? All right, so yeah, just think a little bit about, more about the experiment, and then Wednesday, hopefully we kind of iron out a lot of the little bugs and get an idea of what we're gonna do for this this first lab. So thanks everyone for coming, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you.